Welcome to the Art of Rising. You know, we're all about rising the vibration, rising your consciousness, and giving you some of the codes that you need for life. As always, we're on the look for some great guests, people who have been through it and are rising to the top. And I like for her to introduce herself. Her bio is quite fascinating. And before we do that, I just did want to mention that we're having a men's retreat that's coming up on May 23rd, 24th, 25th. Please stay to the end and we'll help you out with that. In addition to that, we're also announcing our Purple Sage Festival happening on June 28th. And you definitely want to be a part of that. And you stay to the end, we're definitely going to help you with those ticket sales. So just stick around to the end. But for now, please, let's just jump right into it. Tell us your name, where you live, what are you doing with yourself these days?
Well, thank you. Those events, I must say, sound great, by the way. That Purple Sage Festival sounds very intriguing. But I am a spiritual counselor, energy healer, and psychic medium. My name is Chris Wasko, and I specialize in old souls, and I also help survivors of narcissistic abuse. I'm currently living in Southern California, in San Diego area, which is beautiful. Originally from the East Coast, though, more of a Jersey girl. And just riding this ride.
That's great. That's great. We're from Jersey, too. We're currently located in North Bergen, New Jersey. I was in Manhattan one day, and I went out dancing and met a woman, and she danced great. You know, that was important to me at the time. She still does. And but she lived in Jersey, so we moved here. We have the kids and the sanctuary, and we're super devoted to the craft. But tell us, what part of Jersey?
I grew up in Monmouth County, in Homedale specifically. So if you're familiar with the Arts Center, most people understand that, but because it's a small town. So I lived most of my life in that area and loved it. And I had also brought my husband to that area too. I think us Jersey girls love to bring our men back there.
Right.
Say we're gonna live here. We're gonna do this here for a bit. But life guided us elsewhere, which is why I'm now in California.
That's beautiful. So some of your bio is quite fascinating, and you were talking about you performing, being a spiritual, not a coach, but a spiritual guide, you know, an energy healer too. So I know there's lots of misconceptions with some of these things. Maybe you can clear that up and just tell us a little bit more about how does that fit in your life currently?
Yeah, so most of my work, I would say, is energy healer, energy worker, because when I work with clients, I'm reading their energy and I'm helping them unravel these trauma elements that are arising in their body. So I essentially am reading what their body is trying to share. And, you know, if you're familiar with the book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's very much aligned to that. But I can help people find those elements because it's not always easy to see what trauma does to the physical body unless it has truly manifested in something that we're aware of on a daily basis. But there are many elements that are more subtle, and energy is hidden in layers. So as I am reading the energy, I will be able to first see the initial layers, and then we work to get behind those layers, assuming the body wants to allow that. I always respect energetic boundaries. So there will be situations where I'm going into someone's energy and all of a sudden I'll hit some wall. And I'll let them know that because there's always a lot of skepticism in this type of work, right? Because I could just say, oh, I'm not able to get past this, I'm hitting a wall, which in some people may interpret as you can't do that. But for me, I always love to let people know, okay, I'm hitting this wall and here's what I'm finding it's related to. And it's just letting me know that you're not ready for that. And they can always take that. Like, I understand that. And thank you for not pushing past that, because some of us have some very private things that we don't want to climb into. And that's a lot of what I do is I'm helping them understand their own energy, because I am a firm believer that the more we understand ourselves is when we can then go beyond ourselves.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I can see that, how just knowing some of those things allow you to let go, right? Because you're like, you don't even know, you're like, for me, you know, my journey too was like that. I didn't even know I was holding on to those things. until I let go of the grip, and it fell down. I was, oh my God, I'm not gonna pick that up no more.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I find too, the more we release these trauma layers in our body, the more we open up to spirit.
For sure. Perhaps you can tell us what led you into this, opening up and helping people and the spiritual guidance and those
Yeah.
things.
For me, I'd say I pretty much tripped and landed flat on my face into this because I did not foresee this. My background is in business. I was working in
Mm,
Manhattan doing what I thought I was meant to be doing. I was working in the
mm,
mortgage industry. I was in
mm,
sales and living a very different life. And as my journey evolved, and it was quite an evolution, but I recognized that I had extremely narcissistic parents, and the trauma that had affected me so much as a child was starting to affect my family that I created with my husband. My dad is a volatile person, and that volatility and threat of physical violence was starting to reach my children and my husband. And I finally said, enough, I'm not doing this anymore.
mm,
But when you have parents like I do, who have basically punished me my whole life if ever I go
mm,
against what they want, then you're terrified. So I experienced anxiety for the first time in my life, wondering what are they going to do to me?
mm,
And I my first step was just to go to therapy and unpack that and unpack what narcissism is, and the different types of narcissism, and really validate a lot of the experiences I had gone through growing up, and also validating the choice I made to cut off my parents because I just
mm,
wasn't going to allow that abuse to touch my
mm,
family anymore. And
mm,
in this healing, which I didn't even realize I was doing, I more just wanted to feel better, not feel so anxious, not feel so scared. But in this journey of healing, I started opening up to spirit, where suddenly I would start to see people in my mind's eye that were
mm,
clearly not on this plane. But it was surreal. And when it first started happening, I dismissed it like, no, it's just a
mhm,
one off, or, oh,
mhm,
that
mhm,
was, yeah, maybe something. But it
mhm,
just kept happening. And the more it kept happening, the more I recognized that I wanted to do something about it. So I started learning how to develop my gifts. Um, it was through this journey too that I recognized how unpacking the elements of my own trauma is what allowed me to open up. And a lot of the clients I started receiving eventually when I started doing this work, the more they were healing, the more they were opening up to spirit. And they would start having vivid dreams. They would start having, hearing things clairaudiently, or just having a
mm.
very much stronger sixth sense than they had originally. So I started teaching spiritual development classes to help people really tap into their gifts further.
Mm. Wow, that was an interesting word, clairaudiently, right? Wow, I never quite heard it like that before, but naturally, I've heard some things and seen a few things myself too. But I did interview someone recently. Or actually, no, my mistake. I was on his podcast and I was speaking about my journey, and he said, "Wow, you seem to have like this hard, dark past. Like, do you believe that people
Been
who?"
through it themselves on a patient level, and they want to then turn around and help people. So I believe spiritually that evolves as well, whether or
Mm,
not people want to go into therapy or psychology. But I also, because I work with old souls, I know that we choose very difficult lessons. A
mm,
lot of it is because we've already done the easy. So
mm,
we're not going to do that again. We've done it,
mm,
right? So I compare it to taking advanced courses in school. So when we really have this very difficult, challenging upbringing, childhood, all these experiences, they help mold us, but they also teach us. And when we could transmute that and
mm,
help to not only make ourselves better, but help people and make the world better, there's a contagious element to that energetically, and that just
mm,
spreads out. We're not necessarily meant to save the world, but we are absolutely meant to save ourselves,
mm.
and to then see, can we help beyond ourselves?
Right, right. That's fascinating. And then it had to do with your parents too, and then you made the decision like to disconnect from them in communicating anyway, correct?
Yes.
That, so I'm a firm believer of that too. Like some people like, oh no, but that's my mom. Like not if she's defecating on your head.
Pretty
Like
much.
you
Yeah.
might want to cut you. No.
Yeah. If it's
So
affecting your mental health and also affecting you on a safety of my first child, I did
mhm,
forgive him and try to continue a relationship. It was another 8 years until he
mhm,
threatened to hit my husband.
mhm,
And it was just my enough. I'm not doing this anymore. But I also
mhm,
recognized that was part of my lesson. Was I going to allow that in my life? Was I going to subject myself and my family to that? And all because of this aspect of feeling I needed to honor my parents. So that
mhm,
was a very big soul lesson for me. And now that I've been past that and through it, my only regret is not doing it sooner, because it not
mhm,
only changed my life, but it changed me in so many different ways. I became a better mother. I became a better wife. I became a better friend and person because I
mhm,
was shedding all these layers of trauma that were really holding me back from my true self.
mhm, mhm. It's almost as if we should thank them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's weird, right? Because we can't. We're like, I'm not gonna thank. That was painful, but almost it kind of it helps us. It seeps into different parts of our lives, and we change our everything. There was a one teacher, guru that he was given up for adoption early on, and then he jumped from adoption family to the other one. There was abuse along the way and all that, and as he got older and working on these deeper levels, he looked back and he said it was perfect. It was perfect. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
All that abuse, you came to that realization? Wow.
Because you step out of the victim mentality, right? You turn it into strength. That's transmutation. You have now evolved. You are not using it to hold you back. You are using it to propel you forward. And that's the best thing we can do with those kinds of traumas. And this doesn't mean that we shouldn't have those moments of really grieving and being in that victim mentality, because I think there's an aspect of needing to validate what we've been through, what we've experienced, and the parts that we absolutely did not deserve, right? There are human elements to that, I believe, are absolutely important to unpack. But when we can absolutely get beyond that, it really is life-changing.
Yes, it is. It is for myself too. Like I have that dark past too. Just the family growing up, and alcohol was like all over the place. And then I'm sure there was other things behind that were even harder that we didn't see. And then the abuses were there too, and
Yeah.
it was just painful. Like looking back, I was like, how someone would be shocked if they found out that I didn't do drugs or alcohol. Like how
Yeah.
could you not? Like it
Hmm.
was so painful. It's like I just wanted escape, man. That was, but then I had to get out of that. At some point I realized like, hey, I want to get off this ride. I don't want this one no more. And it was difficult. But then people like yourself started showing up around, and I was like, hey, wait a minute. And then my wife, she was very open to all of these things, healing modalities and spirituality and deepness. And, for me, it was like, oh, woo woo. I was like, man,
Yeah.
you know, but then she
Yep.
was feeding me books. Like, you should read this book. And I was like, put it over there. But then one day I picked up one, I started reading, and I was like, whoa, oh, wow. What else do you have? I said,
Yeah.
and she helped me. But you speak about the energy in blockages and the body keeping the score and things like
Yeah.
that. But for you, how does it show up in a person when you see those energy blockages?
Yeah, so it will vary by individual. What I do is I connect my chakra system to their chakra system,
Mm,
and just to say we have many chakras, but I am connecting to the main seven that many of us are familiar with seeing in pictures. So what I do is I'm reading each one. I will go into each one individually. And it really will depend on how the messages are coming across. So in some cases, I'll feel it. Some cases, I'll see it. Some cases, I'll hear stuff. So I'm just looking to see what spirit shows me. based on this connection. So in some cases, I will just see a darkness, which means there's a blockage. So then I see, okay, can we open this up? Because sometimes the blockage is for me, like they're not ready to open, and that's fine. It's just more of getting to that place. Is this for me, or is this because they've just needed to protect themselves? And if it's, for somebody else, so we'll work on, can we at least open this where I can see more? And then going in then deeper, because there's always, that's the first layer. Okay, this one's blocked. So let's just say I'm in a root chakra and I see that's blocked. So that person I already know is not grounded because they have a blocked root chakra. And I know they'll also have symptoms related to having a blocked root chakra. And we will just, go into that more after. When I'm doing the initial reading, I'm kind of just looking to see what they show me, like what the body is showing me. And then after I go through everything I've seen, and, in some cases, I'll go into a chakra, I'll see their inner child. In some cases, I will see one of their parents or a family member. One I had recently, I saw my client's brother, but I also saw a dark entity on his left shoulder. And I said, I see darkness connected to your brother. And she's like, oh, yes, he's very troubled. But it was coming up in her chakra system, which meant his troubles were greatly affecting her. Wow. So it's very fascinating what can come up. I'm still amazed of oftentimes of what I'm shown, what I hear, what I feel, but I trust it 100%. Even if it doesn't make sense, at least not in the initial read, it does come together. And then I will just help them understand what I'm seeing, feeling, hearing. And then we'll just work through that. I'll do some energy clearing with them. We'll do some visualization to help work through some things. It really is just going to depend on the client. I do always feel guided in terms of what to do. Like, for example, if a client is going to respond really well to breath work, deep breathing exercises, I'm going to feel that, right? But let's just say I feel, breath work will really help them. But then I'll also feel they're not going to want to do that. I will tell them, I'll be like, listen, I am getting this aspect. This is really going to help you. But I also feel you have no interest in this. And they'll laugh and be like, yep, that's absolutely right. So I'll try to then come up with that next one. But at least it's planting the seed of this might be something you want to do down the road or start considering it. And we just go from there. So some people will meet me for one session. Many people will meet me for multiple sessions to really just work through stuff, especially if they've had deep levels of trauma. So I have had some clients that will meet me for several months, others for several years. But ultimately, my job is to get them to a place where they don't feel like they need me anymore. They can want me, and that's lovely. And I'm certainly complimented by that. But I am doing my job if they are at the place where they're like, I'm good. And I can keep doing this because I am providing for them in each session this toolbox. And this toolbox is all of methods and energy healing modalities that will help them and serve their energy. So at one point, I'm going to say, I don't know if you're going to need me as much because you have this toolbox, and you could keep just referring back to this toolbox that we built over this time.
Yes, the work that comes in. I know. Because like myself, like everybody, we're looking for the 6-minute abs. Like, look, could you just fix me? Like, just give me a pill, bro. No, it's not like that. It's like my wife likes to say that we're like onions, There's many layers. Just keep peeling, peeling, just keep going.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's how energy works.
Right. I was telling you that we have this private practice here in North Bergen, New Jersey, and we had someone come over for a one-on-one with my wife, actually, and she is deeply devoted to pranic healing, right? So, there's lots of meditations that she does, and she's studying this. Like, wow, she's super devoted, and she's helped many people. I mean, I can tell you, Chris, that there's been some miracle things happening here, and I don't often like to say them because people are like, man, get out of here. You're just trying to sell us, like, you know what? Stick around and you'll be seeing some of these things here because it is miracle, mind-boggling stuff. It's just the universe, energy, God, whatever. I don't know, but, she was working with the gentleman last night, and it went on for a couple of hours, and wow, he's calling me today like, man, I can't believe that. That was like, woo, like just life altering, you
Yeah,
know.
it
But
really is.
yeah,
It really is. And it really, and I, and a credit to anybody who takes that step, because that is a step into self-love, and that you're worth healing.
hmm Definitely, definitely. And then, I also work with people, also with men that come one on one. We do group sessions also. We do
Mhm.
the men's retreats as well, as you could imagine, right? Like last year, we just had our first international retreat. So we went away, tropical, overlooking the beach, crystal clear waters. We went to the waterfall. We ate great food and smoked great cigars, and so, but there was a lot of deep work going on too.
Mhm.
Oh no, listen, we were there for 8 days. So, a
Yeah.
lot of tears crying, including myself, like we
Yeah,
let go of things like, wow, deep stuff. It's so beautiful.
it is.
And sometimes I try to read these energies too as you continue doing this work, and often when I see guys with their arms folded like that, this is like a clear sign of, like, you're telling people, don't come too close to me.
Mhm.
I have walls here, like, and that's
Yeah.
cool, but I try to educate brothers with that. And then there's other times, Chris, where they're like fully open, and then they let all kinds of things out. And I've experienced like this heaviness on me. Like I went to help a family that was grieving from a lost son, and they were looking at me like, hey, you could help us. I'm like, look, I'll do what I can, but like that heaviness was on me. I would come home and like be on my knees, like, honey, please, remove this, man. It's
Mhm.
heavy.
It
So
is.
so my question to you is, you know, how do you do that? When you take on some of these things, because here you are connecting your chakras to them.
Mhm.
Like, oh, wait a minute now. Like, how do you protect yourself or guard yourself or secure yourself? I don't know. These are all words, semantics, but yeah, if you can explain.
Yeah, before every session, I always connect with my spirit team. I connect with my guides, my angels, my loved ones. I ask
Mm,
for not only their guidance and their love, but their protection, and to help this be a session for the highest and best good of all involved and all
mm,
concerned. So I'm basically setting up this layer of protection, asking for help and guidance in that, right? Now, if I am to take on someone else's energy, which can happen, I'll feel it. And
mm,
I, in the past, it probably would have scared me, because it'd be like, I would feel this foreign nature to it. And especially like you describe it, it's heavy and it's hard and it's trauma energy. So I now know better of, where I would have probably tried to detract it. I look now, how can I alchemize this? What is, because I took this in, there's probably a reason. And what can I do with that? And oftentimes I'll do that with the client, and we'll alchemize together. And I really like to help them feel that power as well, that they can do that for themselves,
mm,
and that's a really valuable tool when you're trying to heal any kind of trauma. How can you alchemize this? Right? And that's with any pain. What can you do
mm,
with this? Think of people who, you use the example of losing a child. And I don't think there's any greater loss. Not that we should be comparing or competing in that element, but there is something that is absolutely soul shattering to losing a child, because it goes against the grain of what we can really accept as normal, right? Because
mhm,
it's like,
mhm,
no, the child shouldn't go first. But
mhm,
how many parents take that pain and they turn it into something? They create some foundation, they create something to honor that child that ends up helping others. So
mhm,
that's alchemizing. It's really doing things like that. How can you take your pain and help others with it? Now, this is not to suggest that any of that is easy and that everyone needs to go and start some foundation tomorrow because they've
mhm,
struggled in some way, but
mm,
it's just really an example of what we can do when we can
mm,
recognize, okay, I can do
mm.
something with this pain. So
Right. Mm,
that has helped me not take on as much of the weight as I once did.
mm,
This is not to say that there won't still be some elements here or there, but I'm much more aware of it than I would have been years ago.
mhm,
And I do stuff with it.
mm,
Sometimes I'll write, sometimes I'll create a meditation. So
mm,
like I said, I definitely work to alchemize it in any way I can.
That's fascinating. It's incredible, especially with your background. Parents. Oh wow! I remember reading this book. It's called "I'm Not My Fault," and he was
Mm,
talking about our parents. Like we see them as God, right?
we do.
They provide everything, our food, our shelter, all that. So we see them as God. In fact, they remind us too. Hey, don't forget who brought you into this world, right?
Yes. And who can take you out of it? I got that one a
Exactly.
lot.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. Exactly. But then, you start to realize and wake up like, hey, wait a minute, this is not, no, this is not normal. And I'm not accepting none of these things. It made me think of how many people believe that we've chosen our parents before
Yes.
we've come here. Do you feel that
I believe
somewhere?
that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People like, why would I choose those?
I know. Why would I do that to myself?
Right. Yeah. But it's
Yeah,
it's the lesson. It's
it
the
is.
education. It's the
Hmm.
I don't I don't know. You know. So it's tough. It's tough when you can, try to alchemize that pain when it comes to parents or someone that you love closely. But you talk about transmuting that energy. Now this is super powerful. How would you guide someone, with some of these traumas?
That will always depend on the person because some people are very open to the visual aspects and we'll work a lot with visualizations and we can do it that way. In other aspects, they're not because there's a trauma blocking their third eye. So we will do some more active stuff, more somatic practices of really
Mm,
working with the body. And some other elements, I'm going to incorporate both. But like I said, I'm really going to feel guided. I really do my best to take ego out of this of like, oh, this is all me and I'm this healer. Like, no, I'm guided. I'm
mm,
open to the messages I receive. I
mm,
trust the messages I receive. I'm also grateful to have this ability to help people. And I believe being in that type of state has really helped me to grow this business in the way that I have. Because I know a lot of people are often of the mindset of, you can't benefit monetarily from spiritual work, right? Because then you're
mm,
not spiritual.
mm,
And that's absolutely something that I will completely respect as someone else's
mm,
point of view. But I also
mm,
agree to disagree on that,
mhm, mhm,
there is an element of exchange there. And money
mhm,
is
mhm,
a energy, and that is an exchange we use in this environment, this society. So I am fully aware of how this has allowed me to grow, but I think my aspect of being grateful has really helped that and
mm,
then help
mm,
others. So, yeah, like I said, I just really um, go with that guidance and I trust it.
mm,
And
mm,
I often will receive feedback of how much it helped them. So, even if might have had this aspect along the way of not being sure, uh,
mm,
especially when I was doing this work in the earlier years. Now
mhm.
I'm appreciating that to see that there's a lot of results that come from it,
Yeah, tons
positive
of it.
results.
Tons of it. Like for myself also, like looking for some of those things too. Like we live in a monetary system you mentioned, which is interesting because money is just one of those funny things. Like,
Yeah,
they're coming over here and I go, yeah, well, this is service and there's time and the knowledge and this is the exchange, and
yeah,
they go, oh yeah, but I don't know. I'm like, well, I'm thinking in my head, like I seen you on Instagram at the Louis Vuitton store. Were you, negotiating the price of that purse?
yeah.
No, right? You just paid it. It's like, okay, yeah. But it's just funny. It's one of those things. But perhaps, Chris, you can tell me about, the ancestral patterns and the generational trauma. What does that have, to do and play in all of this?
Yeah, well, so much. And it's interesting. I actually had a client last week where she had some energy connected to her. And we all have programs, right? So she had this energetic program. And I was like, okay, this is yours in a way, but it's not yours in that it was like given to you. So it's almost like you're given a coat that you're not meant to wear anymore. You've outgrown the coat because it's actually mom's. So I started explaining to her what it was, what the limitation was, because it's usually a limitation. and how it was connected to her mother and how she had kept that, right? And then helping to detach from that and letting her know this is not yours. And that in itself can really help a lot. When you have a program that you know is not yours, just that knowledge does so much to help release it. Not always, it's not always a guarantee, but more often than not. So it's really, and then I'll follow, like, how far does this go? And these type of things just go back generationally. I mean, narcissism is a generational pattern, and it doesn't always stop, but shifts. But really, to cut that off, one generation has to say, this is it. This ends with me. But then reinforcing that takes the next generation, that you work with your children and we are going to figure this out together. I am going to be self-reflective as a parent and not try to be perfect. And we are going to try, right? And it's really challenging because a lot of people don't realize how narcissism passes forward in generations, because we tell ourselves, I say it's like creating this tunnel vision. I'm not going to do this, right? We'll come up with something we choose we're not going to repeat because that's what our parents did and that really hurt. So it creates this tunnel vision. We become so focused on not doing that, we don't realize the other things that could be damaging as well, because they didn't have the same kind of energy as that one focus. So when you're raised in these very toxic environments, it's really unpacking all of it. And that was a big one for me. And also recognizing just how far it went back. I mean, I loved my grandparents, but man, they were broken too. I just didn't see it because they didn't take it out on me the way they took it out on my parents.
Right.
And then recognizing, well, they weren't that way when they were children. So this just kept going.
Yeah, it's tough. I just not so long ago, I was in a session too, and I started getting like these downloads. People call them downloads now, right?
Yeah.
They're semantics. They're just words. They're just communications. But I started, receiving that all these things that I was like, some of these things, something was I was struggling with. Like, it started coming to me. It's like, it's not yours. It's not yours. It's not even yours. Like, you focus on it, like it's you. It's not you. This is the past. This is your ancestral things that is coming up. And I was like, wow. And like you said, I separated myself. That helped me so much. Oh man, the next day I was like, man, get out of here.
Yeah.
It's not even mine. It's not mine, But perhaps you could tell me about, some spiritual truth that you wish people understood more when they're facing some of these things. Because it's like belief. Like, do you have to believe or not? Or they go, or like often I'll get like, oh no, that's not in the Bible. I don't, or my pastor didn't say that, so I'm not doing. So
yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point, because it's really, we all have a personal truth, and whatever our personal truth is, once it's challenged, is when people can become triggered. So that's why people can be very defensive of things, because you have challenged their personal truth. If we can get to this aspect of being able to agree to disagree, that someone is not going to always align to your truth, that doesn't make your truth wrong. And it doesn't make them wrong either. It makes us different. Can we be accepting of that? So I think that's a really core element that we can work on just as individuals and as human beings, to just be better in this society, not be so quick to attack somebody, but also recognize that always is coming from wounds and trauma. If someone is attacking you, there's something in them. There's something broken. And the attack is a defense mechanism. So can you help not, for one, take it in? Because if you are taking it in, there's something in you that needs to be worked on. There's something that you believe to be true that isn't necessarily true. But again, that's going back to your personal truth. What is your personal truth, and how have you let it define you to where this outside aspect that's coming in is affecting you?
Right. Yeah. It makes me think of these structural religions.
Yes,
they
religion's a big one.
did you know that more humans have died in the name of God than all wars combined together? It's crazy. It's that thing that you speak about. I'm always fascinated by that. Some belief that it's your truth, right? But how do you know? How could you be so sure? You're willing to, take somebody out or take yourself out for something that you're not even sure about. Wow, man, they got us on that one for real.
Religion is really challenging. I think I have certainly been most harshly judged by Christians in this lifetime, and at varying, for varying reasons at varying times. I was raised Catholic, but I went to a college that was Christian, and I was told right to my face, as if I got slapped, "You're not really a Christian because you're Catholic." And basically told me how disgusting my religion was and that I wasn't accepted. And I was like, well, that's not very Christian-like, and that stunned me. And now I'll get elements of that, this is like witchcraft, and I, do work that's related to the devil. And, so I just find that so fascinating, because if you are very connected to your religion, doesn't matter the religion. I thought religion is about really being of love and pushing that love out into the world. So I believe that if we are really connected to our faith, that we're not there in this righteous form to tell people how they need to behave. Right. But maybe if you are not feeling aligned to it, then maybe instead pray for them. Pray for the world, pray for something, not attack. So I feel religion has been used often in that aspect of people feeling righteous and that they can judge others because of it. And that is where I disagree, but also I'm okay to agree to disagree. I am not here to prove anything to anybody. If that is someone's personal truth, and I fully respect where they're at, and I don't have to agree with them, and we could just easily part ways and be fine.
Right. We are the Omziel Healing Sanctuary, and sometimes there's these different things that come up in people's head. And but once they see that there's no dogma here, it's not about that. We don't say, okay, here's the God that you should bow down to, and none of that, right? But we are working with people's consciousness, right? To elevate them however they see fit. Right. So oftentimes we like to describe ourselves as ushers at the movie theater, right? Just trying to help you get to your seat without knocking somebody's popcorn over. But why? Because the movie's yours. It's you're doing the work. That's it. And there's been people here, Chris, that have went full blown, religion and God after coming here for a while. And I'm like, wow, that's great, brother, sister. Tell us what you've learned. We like to incorporate that. And then sadly, some people have cut us off totally. I'm like, what? If anything, you should be more connected with us because we're the ones who helped you, get in touch with, you know what I'm saying? It's just wild like that, but that's just people, how they think, these preconceived notions of birth and death. And, we just don't know. We're not taught these things, so we don't know, But perhaps, Chris, you can tell us, perhaps, how is it that you help people to integrate some of these things into their daily lives,
Well, I believe faith is really about starting with yourself, right? Because when we have faith in ourselves, then our faith then becomes more expansive. And in some ways that might start with religion, our faith in a higher being, a faith in a religious practice, however that is. But it ultimately is going to connect with who you choose to be as a human being in this lifetime. So where is your faith in yourself? And when you connect to that and you really know where that is in you, right? Then you are able to expand that beyond you and help others and help the world, and maybe you're not working with people, maybe you're working with the planet, maybe you're working with animals, but you are transmuting that, you are shifting that beyond you. But you have to start with you, right? But do that in a way that, one, you're not beating yourself up, right? It's not masochistic in nature, and it's not narcissistic in nature, right? It's where's the ego, and where is me, and where's that separation, and can I now go forward in doing better and being better? It's not about perfectionism, but it's just about, again, you connect with that faith and you expand that out. It really, I think, in so many ways raises the vibration of ourselves as well as the collective.
Right. I often think of Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements.
Yes, for
He
agreements.
says that we're domesticated like dogs.
Yeah, we
That's a
are.
hard truth, man. Like we didn't create none of this. Like we're coming in here, they're telling us this is your food, this is the
Yeah,
clothes you wear, this is the music you like, this is the temple you go to, and this is your God. Like, and then we never question it. And I try
it's
to tell
true.
people, even ancient philosophers, Socrates, they said, question everything.
Yes,
Question
always.
everything. Why not?
Yeah,
Whoever made us gave us the ability to question some of those things, and it seems that you've come to that realization at some point. You started questioning, like, hey, this is not.
absolutely. I think that's really the process of awakening too. And why awakening, it's not just one time. You're awakening, as your wife describes, it's an onion, and these layers of awakening.
Mhm.
So but it starts with questioning and, questioning things like, a lot of it happened for me as a mother. Like, why
Mm.
is our food so toxic? Because I was suddenly recognizing I don't want to feed this to my child.
Mhm.
Even in pregnancy, I don't want to consume these things, for the betterment of my child and,
Mm.
the health and, the health of the pregnancy. And just again, as, my kids were being raised and I mean, still raising, but, we start questioning the systems because we are in systems. You're in a
Mhm.
family
Mhm.
system, we're in a
Mhm.
government system, we have an
Mhm.
education system, we have a
Mhm.
medical system,
Mhm. We have the
keeps
job
going.
system. Yeah.
Exactly. It's
Mhm.
just so when you start questioning the systems,
Mhm.
you're going to then start questioning all the systems, all the
Mhm.
ones we've listed and then some, and that's where the rabbit holes start, and you're really just climbing down them. But you are expanding
Mhm.
your knowledge. This is not to say that you are going to always get to the quote unquote right answer, but you're starting to understand yourself more.
Mhm.
What do I really believe? What do I truly connect with? Is this the
Mhm.
person I want to be? Is this the world I want my children to grow into and
Mhm.
inherit? Right. So
Mhm.
we get into these elements of questioning these systems in order to then decide, who am I in this?
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, it makes me think of Michael Singer, right? In the Untethered Soul, he talks about
Mhm.
the roommate, right? We
Yeah.
always quote that around here, talking about, hey, the roommate, check him. The author goes on to say that if you were living with somebody and they were behind in their rent and they talked all the time and they were noisy, you would get them out of your apartment. But yet we don't do anything about that. Get to know who you are,
Yeah.
right? James Allen does the As a Man Thinketh, right? And there's another powerful book also. Once I started reading these things, it expanded my consciousness, and
Yes.
I started to realize that that little voice that's telling me those truths, supposedly, they're just thoughts. They're
Yeah.
not even me. You know.
No, but it's how, I mean, we are programmed. It's, subconscious mind programming.
Hmm.
And and that has been happening for hundreds and hundreds of years. So a lot of us in our awakening, we're really breaking free of the programming.
Hmm. Yeah, and then it's so liberating
It
too,
is.
right? It's like, wow, like so even some of those things that you spoke about, experiencing like the shockness of the revelations of some practices that you're doing.
Mhm.
We had one friend tell us, may we never get like comfortable with those things.
Yes.
Like you do some healing and you help somebody, you go, oh, that's just no. We should always be like,
Wow.
wow, this
Yeah.
is beautiful.
Yes.
We can't explain how incredible this is. So why don't you tell me about your family life a little bit? You have your husband and your kids too.
Yeah.
How does all this spirituality and things work?
That is such a good question for me because a lot of people, I believe, assume that because of what I do, that's how I live in my Muggle world, as I'll
Yeah,
put
yeah.
it. But my husband is in no way spiritual. When
Mm,
we first met, he was in no way religious.
mm,
He would consider himself an agnostic.
mm,
For anyone that's not sure what that is, it's someone who believes in the possibility of a higher being but isn't quite sure.
mm,
So has kind of just been in that limbo. And so when I came into my gifts and was really expanding on them, I was like, oh, this is going to be a really interesting conversation, is letting him know, like, oh, I see dead people, because that's pretty much how I laid that out. And yeah, and he was receptive. I mean, we've been together a really long time. We're college sweethearts. And so to have his love and support through all of this has been so valuable and important for me. And, and he encourages me a lot, and, and he's seen a lot too. So even if he was in any way skeptical, there's been enough that has happened that he's like, yeah, no, you can't be making this up. And he knows me. So I just not a liar. So there's that. But, and then with our kids, we have 4, and they're all amazing souls in their own way. And we really just live a life about supporting where they're at and the humans that they are meant to be, not telling them who they need to be and how they should live, and, trying to do that in the best way possible, but while also healing our own wounds. We were both raised by narcissistic parents, like attracts like, so you're going to have something, right? And that's been really challenging in ways, and hurtful, and but a process, but it has strengthened our relationship. But a lot of people ask, do I have psychic kids? Because they just assume that's going to be, and I would say, just if I had to say yes or no, yes, but they don't really have much of an interest. It's just not what they wanted
right
to
now.
And I support that, like, I'm not going, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm a feng shui consultant, so they know that I really like to organize the house as far as feng shui supports. And when it comes to their bedrooms, same thing. So I ask, like, hey, can we work with this together? I'm not going in their room and disrespecting their space, so there's elements of that, and they'll kind of be like, okay, I get it. I don't get any eye rolling or anything like that. If I want to stage the house,
right,
no one's doing anything to scoff, which is very sweet, but no one's really jumping in there either. And they don't have to. I didn't come into this till later in my life. They might, and they might not. Their journey is theirs, and I'm not trying to create it for them. I'm just trying to support where they're at.
We have 2 little ones here, also 7 and 9, and they'll start smudging, and they'll do things, and then they're at that age, like, they're so absorbent, and then we just allow them to do whatever, like express themselves, like, when kids are growing up, they like to write on the wall with crayons and markers. So we let them, Chris, do everything. I mean, at some point there was paint all over all the walls. People used to visit us and be like, oh, man, I got to let my kids live a little bit, man. I'm like, yeah, you should, bro. Yeah. Well, you got to stop them for every little thing. Express themselves.
Yeah, it does really help. I mean, I can say for myself, I was healing a lot of the elements of narcissism, because when you're raised by narcissistic parents, you're going to have aspects of narcissism within you. It's often referred to as fleas. And, I really had to unpack that. And so, I mean, I've had some sit downs with my oldest, like, I am really sorry, you deserve better in me. And he doesn't remember a lot of that. But there's a part of him in his psyche that does. So he deserves those apologies of, I was not what I wanted to be for you, and you deserve better. And, he's still, he's an incredible young man, and I'm so proud of him. But we want the best for him. Like, I was not the parent that would have allowed coloring on walls, but I am now, but my kids deserved that then when they wanted to. Actually, the interesting thing, one of my kids that absolutely loved to color on walls. I can say at the time, even though I wasn't allowing the wall coloring, I was able to transition it. I never scolded him for coloring on the walls. And to me, that was a big deal. My parents would have absolutely yelled at me. I would have been scrubbing walls, crying. I would have gotten beaten for
days,
it.
Right.
Yeah. So, it's for me to be like, oh no, like, it's so pretty, but paper, let's do it here. And like, I bought him all sorts of art stuff and easel, but he is an incredible artist now. Like he draws all the time. He does an amazing job,
You
amazing
see,
work. So
that's beautiful.
to support that in them young is beautiful. Like you letting your kids like paint
Right.
on walls, like they're probably doing murals one day and they're going to do
Right.
incredible work. So yeah, the more we can support our children in who they are, especially when they're young, it's really supporting them as human beings and who they're probably meant to be in this lifetime.
Yeah, for sure. And now the kids, they call them again, these are just semantics. Indigo children,
Indigo
right? And
children,
the rainbow children,
yeah,
like that.
crystal
So
children, yeah.
yeah, I strongly believe that. I do because for me to think like, oh, I've changed my life, I'm gonna go and now turn the world upside down. Like, no, it might take a few generations over here. It just might, and I feel that they're the ones coming in, and you mentioned also about the apologies. That's a big one too for me, because I came from parents too. My mom was like, I don't apologize. I'm your mother, why would I do that? I was like, what? Oh man, so
Oh
I'm
yeah.
with my kids. I sit them down and be like, I'm sorry, I blew it, man, I blew it. No, it's okay, Dad. No, I should not have yelled. No, no,
Yes.
no, no. There's discipline, yes, but all that, like, fear and no, I'm sorry. I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
And what a gift that is. I
Mhm.
believe in that. Children deserve respect as much as any of
Mhm.
us do. And
Right.
I think our generation is the first to really start recognizing that as parents.
Mhm.
Our parents' generation did not recognize that as,
Right.
they demand respect, they command
Mhm.
respect, and they
Mhm. Mhm.
will actually have it through
Mhm.
fear. They will
Mhm.
utilize fear to get
Mhm.
respect.
Right.
So
Right.
that is not a direct correlation, and that is going to
Mhm.
create some friction.
Mhm.
And
For
even
sure.
if like you grow up and say, oh, but I have a great relationship with my parents, so like, okay, do
Mhm.
you have some fear elements there?
Right,
I mean,
right, right.
and
Mhm.
people get very confrontational about this too.
Mhm.
And oh,
Mhm.
but all my parents did for me. And this is
Right.
not to suggest that you
Mhm.
shouldn't be grateful, but a
Mhm.
child does not owe their parents anything for
Right.
being born.
Mm. Yes, that is deep. I love that. I love that. It was the Buddha who said, we can never repay what our parents has given to us. And it's like, wow, there's deepness there. Like, think about that. Sit and meditate on that. It's
Yeah.
powerful. It's
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, but it's not an exchange system.
Right. Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. You're
created
old.
as such, there's always going to be some sort of deficit.
mm. Mm.
And that's going to be the focus. And when you make that the focus, you're going to have a relationship of some sort of energy of loss,
Right.
something
Right.
missing.
Right. Right, right. That's deep. That's beautiful. I love that. Okay, Chris. Now let's get into it. You got this book, man. I was reading some of it. Wow, fascinating, man. Here it is. It's on Amazon, An Old Soul's Journey. And you spoke about that. Like, you made that connection with that part of you, of your pure consciousness. So
Yeah.
yeah, get into it. Let me hear. What's this about, this book? Talk to us.
This book very much looks and reads like a children's book, but is
Mm,
very much meant for inner child healing. I
mm,
also am developing a workbook that is going to correlate with this, and for anyone that's going to want to really dive in deeper to inner child healing. Children love it too because there's a little rabbit that's hiding in some of the pages, so kids like to explore that. But
mm.
yeah, I've just felt very connected to the words and that I wrote one day. And I looked at it and I heard, this is a book. And so I just listened to that and trusted the guidance. And yeah, it was just on a whim that I sat down and I wrote. And then
Mm.
I heard, this is a book. And yeah, it just unfolded. So it is out in the world.
How long has it been since it was published?
It'll be a year next month.
Wow, I can
Yeah.
see it's doing quite well on Amazon. And yeah, what are some of the things that people are telling you about the book? How they feel about it?
I often receive thank yous and how the book made them cry. And it really
Mm,
helps them connect. And I always say, if it made you cry, you touched your inner child, you connected with your inner child, because there's a part of you that needed to be seen and heard. And the book allows that. It allows
mm,
this
mm,
opening. And
mm,
but it is really simple, as
mm,
most
mm,
energy healing modalities are. But it's,
mm,
are you willing to look? Are you willing to tap in? And are you willing to make the next steps?
mm, mm, mm. What is the book basically? about? What is the premise, and without giving too much away?
Yeah, so it's basically a journey and talking about how an old soul picks difficult lessons, because I think that's one of the more difficult things that we deal with in this lifetime, because some of us can become so buried in the darkness of the experiences that we become consumed by it. In some ways, levels of depression, and other ways, just despair and loneliness. And so this book is really to recognize, yes, this happens.
Mhm.
And it's just almost like giving them a hug in that, like,
Mhm.
and almost like an apology too. Like, I know what you're going through and I'm sorry. And I'm going to love you through this if you'll accept that. Right. And really know that you are getting the guidance that you are meant to through it, whether or not you know it, because man, it can feel so lonely and isolating. So, like I said, it's really just to validate the individual's experience, because everyone has their own journey and their own story, but they could all connect to the fact that it is challenging and it's hard and it is lonely. So to feel like, okay, this book felt like a really big hug that I didn't know I needed.
Right.
That's actually a direct quote from someone, a hug I didn't know I needed. And
Wow, that's
so I
beautiful.
love the fact that it's out there and it's helping people. And I know it will continue to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Because all we are big kids anyway.
We
Yeah.
are. And we get so detached from that inner child. So to really connect with that version of us is a really pivotal part of healing.
Right. Over time, my parents, like my dad, he was my hero, and he passed on last year. But he taught me like a lot of bad things, and I did a lot of those, like those things I hated in him. I ended up doing it. Like that's
Yeah.
monkey see, monkey do, right? Because
Mhm.
we're just primates at the end of the day. But it was realizing too that he's not a god. He's a kid just like
Yeah.
me. That's it. He was like, he made mistakes. Yeah, he did. Like some of them was super painful, man, but later in his journey, um he picked up other things too. He was a practicing Buddhist, and I saw that too, and I started picking up those things too, like, hey, I'm going to
Mhm.
meditate. Let me see what that's about.
Yeah.
Let me read the books that he's reading too. See, so again, like I started emulating some of those things, and it helped me a great deal. But it was just a fact to see that he's just a kid too. He's trying to figure this out as he goes along too.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, and in a book like an old soul's journey, man, is incredible. Do you see it being in the school system, part of the curriculum too?
I would be surprised by that. Curriculum and schools are, again, going back to the system. They're always
Yeah, but things are
chosen for.
changing now, you
It
see.
is. If it is going to be in any school, it is going to be a school that is not connected to the Board of Ed in the way that the standard is. So, sure, we're going to have a lot of like private, maybe. Sure, I would
Hmm.
love to see that. I will.
I see it.
I would love that. That would be
I see it.
beautiful. If anything, I know it's become part of some circles, like
Hmm.
spiritual circles for adults and children alike. So to know that
Mm,
that's
mm,
happening and that people are connecting
mm,
on that and
mhm.
connecting with their inner children, helping,
Mm,
just their kids see
mm.
and know who they are.
Right, right.
Because I think as parents too, we can't prevent our kids from experiencing difficult parts in their journey. We are on the earth
Mm,
plane. It is a difficult planet to live on. So
mhm.
our kids are going to go through some challenging things as well. But how about if we can energetically prepare them to know that, okay, you're supported, you're loved.
Right,
And
right.
this shows you
Mm.
how.
Yeah, there's tons of excuse me, tons of homeschooling that's taking
Yep.
place as well.
Yes.
During the pandemic, our
Yep.
kids were home, and we were schooling them like that. And when they went back to school, my youngest boy, when I went to go meet the teacher, she told us, "Who did that to your son?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like,
Mhm.
"He reads." Like
Yeah.
he's in the first grade, and I'd never seen that. Why? I was like, we homeschooled them. That's
Yeah.
why, and we still do. My wife is right on them, working with them there. So that's powerful. I could see how some of these things can help, your children and yourself too, to get in touch with some of these things. And open your mind a little bit, just
Exactly. Yeah.
rise up, rise. It's the art of rising here.
I agree. Yes. I love it.
Thank you so much. Perhaps you could tell me where people can reach you if they want to speak with you.
Yeah, no, thank you. My website is the easiest place to find me, which is my name, chriswasko.com.
That's beautiful. That's good. I did want to mention about the Purple Sage Festival, and you said it was interesting, right? So,
Sounds
we've been
intriguing.
doing these festivals for some years now, and we're growing. So we have this bigger place. It's outdoors. It's an outdoor festival. We have musicians, artists, dancers. Energetic food, alkaline food, juicing, all this kind of positive,
Yeah.
high
High
vibrational
vibration.
stuff. Vendors are there as well. And the name, after I was throwing around a bunch of names, it just came to me like that. The sage naturally is about cleansing and clearing,
Mhm.
right? And then the purple, it's the highest,
Crown. Yeah.
the crown chakra, the purple, connected with your higher power. That's how people connect the color in the color schemes. And then we also think about in the Bible when Pontius Pilate and his men, after they beat Jesus or Yeshua, whatever the name you want to choose, again, it's just names. It says that they threw him the purple robe, right?
Yeah.
They could have just said they threw him a towel or they threw him a robe, but it's codes there. They're trying to tell you like
Yes.
he's royalty. That's the highest point
Yes.
of elevation, purple.
Hmm.
So it's the Purple Sage Festival.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But what I want to do is I want to tell people that if you can just contact us, and let us know that you want to come to this festival. And the code word is Waska, Wasko. If you can tell me that, we'll give you 10% off of the early bird special as well. So just let us know. We'd love to have you guys come through. And Chris, you're welcome with the family. Come through.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. There you have it, guys. Thank you for listening. Until the next time, peace.